Hello, and thank you for hitting play. Today, this is the daily Catholic Mass readings for Saturday, November 13th. And today's feast day is for St. Francis Xavier Cabrini. So, St. Francis Xavier Cabrini was the first U.S. citizen to be canonized as a saint. But she wasn't born in America. She actually became a citizen later on in her life. She's actually Italian. She was born in Italy, became a nun, and took religious vows over in Italy. And part of her mission was to care for the poor, and she was running an orphanage over in Italy. When she came over to America, the first place she went to it, and she came to America mostly because of all the Italian immigrants that were over in New York. So she arrived in New York and was hoping to have a building for an orphanage over in New York City, but the Archbishop in New York City told her that that building wasn't available. So she went ahead and just pushed on. Ultimately, she founded over 67 different institutions for people who just didn't have a lot in their lives. And that included schools, hospitals, and orphanages. She is the patron saint of hospital administrators, immigrants, and of impossible causes, mostly in large part because whenever she was told no, she always found a way to make that no into a yes, some way, somehow. And then another cool little thing is she's also known as being an intercessor for finding a parking space. Apparently, because she was originally in New York and then later on went into Chicago, she had a lot of experience in very large, big, crowded cities. So apparently she understands a thing or two about traffic. Today's first reading is again from the Book of Wisdom, chapter 18, lines 14 through 16, and then chapter 19, lines 6 through 9. When peaceful stillness compassed everything and the night in its swift course was half spent, your all-powerful word, from heaven's royal throne bounded, a fierce warrior into the doomed land, bearing the sharp sword of your inexorable decree. And as he alighted, he filled every place with death. He still reached to heaven while he stood upon the earth. For all creation, in its several kinds, was being made over anew, serving its natural laws that your children might be preserved unharmed. The cloud overshadowed their camp, and out of what had been water, dry land was seen emerging. Out of the Red Sea, an unimpeded road, and a grassy plain out of the mighty flood. Over this crossed the whole nation, sheltered by your hand. After they beheld stupendous wonders, for they ranged about like horses, and bounded about like lambs, praising you, O Lord, their deliverer. The word of the Lord. Today's responsorial psalm is from Psalm 105, and the response is, remember the marvels the Lord has done. Sing to him, sing his praise, proclaim all his wondrous deeds. Glory in his holy name. Rejoice, O hearts that seek the Lord. Then he struck every firstborn throughout their land, the first fruits of all their manhood. And he led them forth laden with silver and gold, with not a weakling among their tribes. For he remembered his holy word to his servant Abraham, and he led forth his people with joy, with shouts of joy, his chosen ones. And again, that response is, remember the marvels the Lord has done. Today's gospel is the gospel according to St. Luke. It is from chapter 18, lines 1 through 9. Jesus told his disciples a parable about the necessity for them to pray always without becoming weary. He said, there was a judge in a certain town who neither feared God nor respected any human being. And a widow in that town used to come to him and say, render a just decision for me against my adversary. For a long time the judge was unwilling, but eventually he thought, While it is true that I neither fear God nor respect any human being, because this widow keeps bothering me, I shall deliver a just decision for her, lest she finally come and strike me." The Lord said, "Pay attention to what the dishonest judge says. Will not God then secure the rights of his chosen ones who call out to him day and night? Will he be slow to answer them? I tell you, he will see to it that justice is done for them speedily. But when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth?" This is the gospel of the Lord. So, today's readings are ones in which it's really just the first couple words from the Book of Wisdom that really resonates with me. And last weekend, or starting on Thursday night, I drove over to the Atlanta area to a place called the Ignatius House. And I went there for a 72-hour silent, prayerful retreat. I'm not going to get into all the details of why I went there, but ultimately just going to that place and thinking, wow, a gas bag like myself going to be quiet for 72 hours, this sounds insane. And one of the first things that, and it wasn't 72 hours of silence, there was a guided prayer by a priest from the Jesuits, from the Society of Jesus. And one of the things he said to us, now we were quiet, but he told us this weekend is to be about solitude, leisure, and silence. And it is in those moments of solitude, leisure, and silence in which we really have an opportunity to hear God speaking to us. And I've said this to my wife before. I believe that God speaks to us, or wants to speak to us all the time. But I think two things have to happen. First, I think he wants us to speak to him. Pray to him. Like, prayer is our opportunity to speak to God. But then, when you pray to him, are you listening? And what does listening require? Listening requires silence. And last weekend, in my 72 hours of near silence, I heard God speak to me a number of times. And there was another time, about a month ago, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning because I signed up for a Eucharistic adoration that my church was holding. And I signed up for 3 o'clock in the morning so that my wife didn't have to do such a horrible hour. She got the 9 o'clock hour. But during that hour of silent adoration in the chapel at my church, there is no question I heard God speaking to me. Now, I'm not going to share what he said because I'm still discerning a lot of the stuff that I've heard and the messages I believe that I received. But it is in that silence that I find that God speaks to me. Now, with regard to the actual readings, the Book of Wisdom is really kind of going about how it was that night in silence in which Abraham and ultimately Moses led the people, the Israelites, out of Egypt and back to their homeland. But this is really all done through God. But it was God who sent them, and all the great magic was done at night. But when I really think about today's gospel, and it's never funny, but I am curious at just the way it strikes me, is that it's the first three words that stick with me out the gate, and then the last three. And the last three from Luke's gospel is, well, I'll read the sentence. "But when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth?" So will he find faith on earth? So when we think about that peaceful silence and that opportunity to pray to God and have an actual conversation with God, is God going to find faith on earth? And I personally think, and my personal opinions are really just to me, but I think one of the greatest ways for God to find faith on earth is for us to have a conversation with God. And if we're not doing that, we'll never hear what he has to say. And if we don't hear what he has to say, sometimes it might be hard to actually have faith and a belief. So today I challenge you. Take a few moments in silence. Pray. Really think about God. Think about the great things that have happened in your life. Give thanks to all he's done for you, the good and the bad, because without the bad, sometimes it's hard to really appreciate the good. But listen. Listen in silence. So I hope you enjoyed this today. And as always, have a great day, and God bless you. Thank you.